Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I recently went on a work trip and spent 1 week working from our office in Barcelona. And while I was there, I noticed a lot of differences, especially when it came to alcohol and their cultures when it comes to alcohol in Spain versus Sweden. Now, I've already talked about some of the Swedish drinking culture on my channel, and I've made several videos about the Swedish liquor store system Bolaget, what I think about it, and all those types of things. I'll link those videos up above if you want to learn more about that. So I don't want to talk too much about the Swedish liquor store and system here in this video. I want to get a little bit more deeper into the cultural beliefs with alcohol because it's very, very fascinating. And growing up in America, it's completely different moving here. And I think by going out and traveling and seeing another country again, it really opened up my eyes to how unique the Swedish attitude is around alcohol. Now, growing up in a family with German parents, I felt like I was given a very, very healthy mindset around alcohol. When I was younger, they would always have like the 1 sip rule, so I could just like have one little taste. And I just kind of grew up with like alcohol being this thing that it was nice to have with dinner. It was nice to have with food. Like now when I was getting older, I could have a glass of wine with some pasta, all of those sorts of things. And going to Spain, I realized it was the exact same mindset there. I was really, really lucky. One of my colleagues down in our Barcelona office was on the Spanish master chef, and he would make us these amazing lunches in our office there every day. I was so spoiled to have really like world-class food for lunch. And pretty much every day at lunch at our office in Barcelona, we would have like a glass of wine or a beer with our lunch, depending on whatever the food was. And this, I think, would never happen in Sweden. In the Swedish workplace, people never drink at lunchtime. It's sort of like Swedish people have this sort of all or nothing mindset around alcohol. Whereas I was kind of brought up with the mindset of like, oh, you can enjoy a drink here, you can enjoy a drink there with your food, it pairs really well. And Germany, a country that's very much known for like drinking a ton. I have German friends come and visit me in Sweden, and yeah, we drink throughout the day. We'll have a beer here and a beer there, but it's never to the point where we're like getting extremely drunk. It's just kind of nice to relax, have a beer in the sun with your lunch or whatever it is. Actually, I visited one friend in Germany, and I thought this was kind of interesting. Like we woke up in the morning and he was like, "Do you want to have a Weizen for breakfast?" And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want beer for breakfast. Like lunch is one thing, but breakfast, that's next level. And he's like, well, I'm gonna have one and it's gonna go really well with like our meats and cheeses here. And I was like, all right, I'm on vacation, I'll have a Weizen for breakfast. But it wasn't like we were drinking to get drunk at all. It was just like we were drinking to enjoy a beer, and then we went out and about our activities throughout the day, and it was like no big deal. It's just such a more relaxed culture around alcohol in other countries, I would say. Now, going back to Swedish culture around alcohol, Swedish people really do have this all or nothing mindset. Now, of course, there's different kinds of people in every single country. There's a lot of people in America that binge drink, especially in college. Having been in a fraternity in college myself, there's a lot of that going on where people are at parties drinking really crappy beer just to get drunk.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was tough.
5 hours later.
In Sweden, it's very much that same mindset of like what we had in college in America. It's like you don't drink at all unless you're partying. And that's not for everybody. There are people that just like to go out and enjoy a beer, just like a lot of people out in America. They're like after work, just, hey, hit up a buddy, meet up for a beer after work, kind of like our fika in a way in America. And also the beers when you go out in America are much, much cheaper as well. But it's almost like if you were to want to have a beer with your food at lunch, it kind of might be frowned upon by the other people here in Sweden because they have this alcohol ingrained in their mind as like this party thing. And it's the same with like drinking on weeknights. The vast majority of Swedish people do not drink Monday to Thursday. They do not drink during the weekdays. And then Friday after work and Saturday night, they're partying, going hard, going crazy. Another thing that's really common in Sweden that I never really experienced in America is like Swedish people will just give up alcohol for an entire month. Maybe it's people who are drinking, partying, having a good time for a long time, and they're like, all right, I'm gonna have a vit månad, like a white month, which means they're just not gonna drink at all for an entire month. And it's kind of like they do that to sort of like limit themselves and keep themselves in check because they do sort of have that all or nothing mindset. Whereas in America, I've never heard of like too many people doing that, or none of my friends, like never really heard of it at all. And it's just so common here. Tons of my friends have done a vitmånad during different periods of time while I've lived here. I've even done one as well. And I think it's healthy to keep things into perspective, but I think that is also something that stems from people when they drink here going hard versus like if you're just having a beer here and there with your food or whatever, it's like maybe not as necessary to be like, all right, cold turkey, not gonna have any alcohol at all. So I've been asking myself, why is it this way in Sweden? And I have two theories that I think might contribute to this culture where when people drink, they go hard here in Sweden. And the first theory is the liquor store system that I've talked about in the past, because you can only buy alcohol in Sweden at certain times and on certain days. Like the liquor store, for example, is closed on Sundays, and on the weekdays it's usually closed at 7 or 8 depending on your local liquor store. And once that's closed, you can't buy alcohol anywhere, even beer or wine. Like you can't even buy in grocery stores unless it's under 3.5%. So it's sort of like when you go to the liquor store, you're going to the liquor store to buy booze, and you got to load up and you got to plan ahead, and maybe you're buying more alcohol than you need because you're like, okay, it's going to close, so I'm just going to buy a whole bunch and have it at home. And it's sort of, I think, might feed into this mindset. Now, I think there's definitely pros and cons with the liquor store, and I think they are a great store and they do a great job of providing a lot of quality options and controlling and making sure that underage people aren't getting alcohol and all those sorts of things. Totally on board with that. But it is interesting because there are pros and cons with it. I think maybe that mindset of like you have to go to a certain place and get all your booze and sort of plan ahead, maybe that can contribute to that mindset a little bit. Whereas in America, it's like, I know I can just go out and get a beer at a grocery store or whatever I need. And it's not like I feel like I need to stock up and prepare. So I'm not getting into like that binge mindset. It's like, oh, I'm at the grocery store, I'm making dinner. Oh, I'll grab some beers to have with my dinner. No big deal. Another interesting side note with this is like in Germany, for example, they have Radler beers, which is like 2.5%. And it's like beer mixed with like lemonade or like lemon flavors in there. And it's just so nice and refreshing, especially on a warm day. It's called a Radler because it's like what bicyclists would have when they like take a break, because Radler is like bicyclist, I guess. And they would just have one of those after a long day out in the sun or whatever. And it's so refreshing and so good. And of course, like you're not drinking a 2.5% beverage to get drunk. It's just like, it tastes really good. And I'm surprised because that is actually legal to sell in like a normal grocery store in Sweden. And I've never seen that in Sweden. Instead, they're selling like 3.2% Coronas and like 3.2% like really just crappy beer, where it's just like the lower percentage version of the beer that you can buy in the liquor store. So for people that are desperate when the liquor store is closed. So it's like, why don't they just have some drinks that are like lower alcohol that actually taste good? I don't know, I guess taste is like a preference, but I'm very curious why they don't sell those here. The other reason why I think there may be a little bit more of a binge drinking culture in Sweden is because the Swedish society, people are so reserved. And I think it takes a lot of alcohol for people to really open up, interact with strangers, meet new people. I think maybe in a country like this where there's like less small talk, there's less people interacting on a day-to-day basis, they kind of get in this mindset of like day-to-day, I'm doing my own thing. And then when I go out and party, they kind of want to like let their guard down, but they're not used to like interacting with people on a day-to-day basis all the time. So maybe the alcohol helps to lower the inhibitions. It's easier to talk to people, get to know people at parties. And I see the same thing with like talking to people out and about. There's so many more people that come up to me on like a Friday or Saturday night out at a bar to strike up a conversation versus just like walking around the street on a weekday morning in Stockholm. Like nobody's gonna come up to you here because that's just like not the culture to go up and strike a conversation with a stranger. So it's like very much in a box, and when you're partying, that's kind of the time to like go out and meet new people. But because it's something that people in Sweden don't do all the time, I think maybe they're a little bit more reliant on the alcohol to sort of open them up and make it more like culturally acceptable in those places. And I think because of that, maybe people are drinking more when they're drinking. It's like there's a time and place for it, if that makes sense. So with that, guys, those are my observations about the drinking culture in Sweden. I'm very curious if you guys agree with me. And again, I just want to say that there's all kinds of people in both countries. Like this is me just totally generalizing, but this is just what I've seen and what I find to be very, very interesting. With that, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button because that lets me know that you liked it, and it really helps this video reach more people that might find it interesting. So much appreciated. And with that, I'll see you guys in another video.